In view of the overwhelming evidence of your guilt, and in accordance with the verdict of the jury, I hereby sentence you to state prison for life without the possibility of parole.
At the trial of one of the two Menendez brothers.
Menendez will be.
Lyle and Eric Menendez.
Brothers Lyle and Eric Menendez.
Lyle and Eric Menendez. Armed themselves with shotguns.
Murdering their wealthy parents.
What if one of the most famous murder cases of the 90s was never about the crime at all? Behind the bloodshed lies a story of abuse, deception, and a family shattered beyond repair.
Juan and Mary Louise Menendez, the parents of Joseph Lyle and Eric Galen Menendez, seemed like the perfect parents, raising the perfect children. Standing to inherit a sum of over $14.5 million, Eric and Lyle Menendez were the rich and famous children of a powerful businessman.
Jose was born in Cuba, immigrated to the United States as a teenager after the Cuban Revolution of the 1950s, and lived in the attic of a cousin's home until he earned a college scholarship for swimming. In college, he met Mary Louise Anderson, a beauty pageant queen known as Kitty. They married in the early 1960s and moved to New York City, where Jose earned an accounting degree from Queens College. He then rose from washing dishes to working as a successful young entertainment executive.
Joseph Lyle Menendez, the oldest child, was born on January 10, 1968, in New York City, New York. Eric Galen Menendez was born on November 27, 1970, in Gloucester Township.
While Lyle excelled in academics and sports, Eric was seen as quiet, sensitive, and struggled to meet their father's high expectations. Jose frequently held Eric to the same standards as Lyle, treating him harshly when he fell short. Unable to stand up for himself, Eric often relied on Lyle to defend him against their father's relentless demands.
On the fateful day of August 20th, 1989, Jose and Kitty Menendez were found dead in their Beverly Hills mansion.
Someone kill my dad. Pardon me? Someone kill my dad. I'll be right there.
What happened?
Jose and Kitty died at the scene of their murder from multiple gunshot wounds, 4 shots to Jose and 9 shots to Kitty. 7 months later, Eric and Lyle Menendez were charged and arrested for the murder of their parents.
Was it cold-blooded murder or a desperate cry for help?
At the age of 6 began the sexual and psychological abuse and rape of Lyle Menendez by his parents, primarily his father, Jose. 6-year-old Lyle was forced into sexual acts and threatened to keep quiet. Lyle was beaten and raped using various objects and lubricants, as well as being forced to perform oral sex on his father.
It began as massages, everywhere, legs, arms, and torso, in public and in private. Lyle had believed this was normal and had never complained. Shortly after, around the age of 7, Jose Menendez would follow Lyle into the bathroom and guide his movements.
And what was it?
He raped me.
Did you cry?
Yes.
Did you bleed?
Yes.
You scared?
Very.
Due to the abuse by his father from a very young age, Lyle's mental state was not like the average child's. These traumatic experiences led him to believe that his father's behavior was normal, which led him to perform similar acts upon his brother.
I took him out to the woods. I played with Eric in the same way. And I'm sorry.
At the age of 8 years old, Lyle Menendez had finally stood up to his father about his actions, telling him to stop in the middle of the act.
Eric's testimony states his father not only subjected him to horrific acts of violence, but also demanded complete obedience, leaving no space for safety. Jose would give Eric massages, which Eric initially perceived as a privilege because this was the only time his father would take a moment to be alone with him and offer him affection.
One of them was to stick tacks, like this in his thighs and in his butt, and to run needles across his penis.
It was accompanied by constant threats designed to keep Eric silent and obedient from the age of 8.
My dad had been molesting me.
While their father is often the focal point of the abuse statements, their mother, Kitty, also contributed to the brothers' trauma, though the nature of the abuse from her is somewhat different. She ignored the abuse by their father and would belittle and punish the brothers for showing distress or trying to protect themselves. This case was heavily influenced by society's perception of the brothers as wealthy, privileged individuals. The brothers, coming from a rich, well-known family worth over $14 million, a sentence overly repeated during news reports, made many people see the brothers' actions as unaccountable for people of their social status. Media coverage mostly focused on their luxury lifestyle, which made it harder for the public to sympathize with them. The huge shopping and spending after the killings helped portray them as spoiled boys after money. Instead of viewing them as victims of abuse, many people saw them as entitled individuals who committed a brutal crime. The media also emphasized the trial, with some outlets mocking the brothers and minimizing their experiences. One notable example of this was an SNL skit that mocked and imitated the Menendez brothers, portraying them as spoiled, out-of-touch individuals who laughed about their situation.
They're in the bathroom.
Sexism also played a role in how the case was handled, particularly in how the brothers' emotional state was seen. In the trial, their claims of abuse were often met with skepticism, and their vulnerability was sometimes dismissed as a form of weakness. There was also a fundamental sexualization of the brothers, with media outlets focusing on their physical appearance rather than their trauma.
The legal system's handling of the Menendez case was influenced by public opinion, which led to some biased rulings. The brothers' wealth and privileged background made it harder for the public, and possibly the court, to view them as victims of abuse. This bias may have shaped how the case was approached, with less attention given to the possibility that they were acting out of fear and trauma.
Judge Stanley Weisberg's handling of the Menendez case was also influenced by his previous loss in the O.J. Simpson trial. After Simpson won, Weisberg faced public pressure and inspection over his decisions. With his re-election approaching after the Menendez case, Weisberg was under additional stress to secure a conviction in the Menendez case. The need to avoid another high-profile failure affected his rulings, leading to decisions that were influenced by his personal gain. In 1990, Christine Varnes, a resident of Yakima, Washington, murdered her mother, Loie Heisman, by drowning her in a bathtub during a heated argument. The conflict arose after Loie admitted to knowing about the sexual abuse Christine had endured as a child from her stepfather, but blamed Christine for it. The Menendez brothers, on the other hand, received life sentences without the possibility of parole.
First of all, that men cannot be raped since they lack the necessary equipment to actually be raped.
Had the Menendez brothers been female, their claims of abuse may have been received with more empathy. This case reveals how sexism within the legal system not only affected the Menendez brothers' treatment, but also contributed to a system that failed to poorly account for their trauma.
Question: would you feel any differently about what happened to my client if my client's name was Erica Menendez? Would it make any difference to you if he was a girl who was sadistically, sexually molested by her father? Because if it would, it shouldn't.
In sensitive cases of abuse and sexual assault, especially those involving vulnerable children, the abuse and trauma endured by the victim should never be overlooked or disregarded. The number of times this exact act occurred during the Menendez brothers' case is very saddening and concerning. Not only because their abuse claims were dismissed by the system, but also because they were ridiculed by society. It is difficult to understand the victim's mockery. let alone the trauma they endured.